Hello, it's me again. It's been quite a while since my last video. So in today's tutorial, I'm going to walk you through a interesting feature which is called direct boot. So basically, it's a delivery method. So basically, you pick up your order from a store, so online store, and then ask the staff to deliver that package to your to the boot of your vehicle. Hello, my friend. My name is Juntao. I'm a software developer, an author, and a creator. I help people write better code. I do that by writing blogs and articles or even books. And I also create videos for people who want to learn clean code, refactoring, test-driven development, and many other things in software development. Yeah, I enjoy to create this content to help people, especially for the beginners, to learn these fundamental techniques they will need in day-to-day life. If you haven't yet, please subscribe and turn on the notifications, so whenever I have new releases, you will get notified. There are a bunch of interesting things here in this feature, and that's why I'm picked up. So as you can see, there are many status. So initially, in a section or in a UI, either on your phone or on the website. Normally, it's on your phone, and like after you initialize the order, you place the order. Because they are preparing your order, like pick up the products and packaging them up. During that time, that order obviously cannot be delivered, so the button will be disabled, like going out, and at some point it will turns to like ready and it's clickable. So at this stage, you can basically click the button. That will notify the store that you are arrived outside the store. So then they will like and then one of their steps will pick it up and then deliver it right to your boot of your vehicle. So when you click the button, it will send a request to the store or like to the service. Basically, it will notify the store, like maybe they have a monitor or something on the store, like this number is this customer has arrived and is ready to pick it up or ready to deliver it. So you notify the store. Well, you will show a message like this. Thanks for letting us know. You will be ready in a minute. And if something went wrong, like when you click the button, but at that time, either the network is down or the service is not responding, or like a timeout or something like that, any kind of error will trigger another process, which is the fallback to a number. So basically, it will say the server is not responding, so please call this number instead. And then you click the button that will launch the phone call on your phone. I think there are a bunch of things pretty interesting here. The first one is you need to check like periodically, is the order ready? Like you have to send pull request and like periodically every second or something like that. And at some point it will be ready. And then you can click the button. Click button will send another request to notify the store. And if everything goes well, it will disappear the button. And if something went wrong, either we notify the store, or when there are too many retries on the polling, it will go to the call store kind of fallback. Yeah, that's pretty much about the feature. And we will using the TDD, test-driven development, to implement this whole feature step by step. And we can start from the initial status, which is like like we are preparing, the button is disabled. The very first test will be, so I'm a customer and I have the order ID, and I would like to say if there is a message on the page and there's a button which is disabled. Yeah, and then we can continue on the second one, like we assume the network is ready or network's error. So they can be different test cases. And yeah, let's get started. So I have an empty application already here. It's basically a H1, and if you look at the in the browser, it's just a text, the heading. And we will, as we are using the TDD, so we'll just create the test first. So we can start with creating files. Firstly, let's create a test. Let's call it direct to boot the test tsx. All right, and we can describe this as like this direct to boot feature, and we like to verify the first one is like renders a section for direct to boot, or like simply render a direct to boot section. So yeah, very first one will be render direct to boot, and we would like to provide a order ID. Let's say it's maybe order ID, something like that. So this step is if you have seen my previous videos, you probably has already familiar with the TDD process. So basically it forced you to think from the customer's perspective, or think from the API's perspective of your of the feature you are going to deliver. So for example, in here we will think for us to render this section, or on a UI, what we need a order ID to doing the network request stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much the way you think it. So obviously at the moment the test will not pass because direct to boot is not defined, as you can see here. So quick fix is option enter, and we can create a function component direct to boot. And yeah, we have this kind of function component here, and then we simply extract the order ID. But yeah, we're not going to use it yet. If you run test again, it will pass because yeah, obviously there is no assertion here. So we will need to expect in a screen to get by text, let's say direct to boot, because we have a in the UI, in the mockup, we have this headline here. So we like to check this one does exist to be in a document, and obviously the screen is we need to import that from the React test library. So once we have this, if we run the test again, it will again fail because we don't have anything returned from the component yet. So the simplest implementation will be, as you can see here, we just simply return the text itself right from there div, right? So if we run test again, it will pass. But also we would like to see some message there, and we can do that just like what we done in this test or in this assertion. So we would like to, you can command D to duplicate the previous line. And yeah, in here we probably will not showing this one because the button is disabled. It cannot be clicked anyways. So let's simply make it another message like we are preparing your order. We want to see that on the UI as well. So if you run test again, it will fail this time because text is not there. So we can firstly wrap this with a h I don't know, 3 maybe, sorry, h3 to wrap the header, and then we also want a paragraph maybe to display the message like this one. So we are preparing your order, which is good. And also yeah, if we run test again now, it will pass. And the next step will be we need to check the button there. So we can get by test ID maybe, or get it by row. It doesn't matter. We can even get by text. But yeah, I prefer to use kind of test ID for that particular button, because I want to click that in later on stage. But get text could get multiple instances if you have multiple text, like similar text. It's pretty common to have this similar text like direct to boot. Maybe there are many instances. So we can get by row maybe a button. We can, yeah, let's try that first. And yeah, couldn't find any buttons, so let's put a button here. And what is it? Here. And we run the test again, it will pass. And now let's extract a variable here. Let's call it maybe inside this one. We call it button. Oh, sorry, not that one, but we want to extract a variable like this. We call it button maybe. And we want to make sure the button is on the screen first. And then we would like to expect the button to be disabled, right? To be disabled. So initially it's not disabled. That's fine. We can make it disabled for now, as that's our very first test. So disabled, yeah, by default it's just disabled. Run test it again. Now we have a pass, right? That's pretty good. We have a component that even the old ID is not in use yet, but we kind of we derived out that structure of the component. So now we have this component. It has a header, heading, a description, and a button which is disabled and saying I'm here. Yeah, that's pretty cool. We have one test that drives a basic structure of the of the component. And next step will be let's extract that into its own file. We can do that by F6 and move the direct to boot function to direct to boot tsx. And yeah, now we have it. And yeah, we have the function component direct to boot, and we have this basic structure assertions. And if we want, we can even check that on the page. Yeah, I know it doesn't do much, but we can try that direct to boot, give the old ID, let's say it's an older ID. And if we see that on a screen, it will be something like this, which is pretty what we are expecting. Not the, it's not pretty, but yeah, it's kind of have the structure already. Okay, now let's start with our second test, which is maybe the happy path. Maybe we can start from here. Like if we send the request first and then the button is enabled, we can check that status change. But yeah, that here is the challenge of the next test. That's the network. So network, we definitely don't want to have, or maybe we don't have in a real world in the real project. We probably not have that API ready by the time we write the UI, and we would like to mock it or like fake it first. We don't want to call the real API because the old ID might, with that old ID, you might need to talk to the database. You then have to prepare the database in the database. Like you have to feed it some fake data into that database. But the ID will be like sometimes, I guess most of times, it will be a random ID, like a UUID. We kind of don't want to depend on that flaky ID, because we definitely don't. So in the real world projects, we don't want to rely on the backend during the development. We only need the only thing we need is a API that when I send a request with the ID, a particular ID, I want it to return a status. That's what we want. That's what I want. I don't want to have too much like setup at the beginning. We have a lot of options for mocking server side or API side. That's pretty basically you can either set a static HTTP server in your local, or you can have some kind of fake server running, like either a static or dynamic service in your running on local. So we are going to use what we are going to use here is the mirage.js, which is pretty lightweight and running fast as well. If you look at the mirage.js, it's a very interesting library. So basically what you do is, let's start from maybe here. Let's install. So we can add the mirage.js first to our local. Because I'm using the yarn, we can simply install it to our local. But normally you need to select a specific node version. I'm using the 16.10.0, and I'd like to install that into my NVM for that particular version as well. So I'm adding it to my local. So let's quickly do that in our local. So in our test, we can say, because I have already installed the so in the package.json, I have just installed that mirage.js in my dependencies as my dependencies. So alright, we have the Mirage installed in our local, and then we can have a look at how we can use that in the test. So basically you import the create server method function from the Mirage, and then before each of the test you create a server, and after that you will shut it down. In your test you can set it up like so, which is pretty cool, right? We simply say, okay, please, when I get some request when we send get request to a particular API, we want it to return something like this, and then you can consume the API in your component. That's pretty awesome. We can copy this whole thing into our local, which is here. Let's see, we want to create a server, and I guess we need the type here, which is a server from the Mirage. And what is I don't know what is wrong with that. Maybe yeah, we don't want this actually. So in our description, we can simply say, please create the server whenever you start a unit test, and then shut it down once you finish the test. So it's expecting one argument, but again, there maybe we just give it an empty thing. And then in our first test, we don't have to change anything yet. So if we run a test, it should still pass. But when we have the second test, let's say, and render, how do you say that? It's renders button. Sorry, it enables the button when the order is ready, right? So initially the order is like initialized or preparing, and at some point we will turn it on or like enable it. So we can say server.get let's say API orders /ID, and for that one we want the schema request, and we will return a object with ID as request of parameters .id, and the status is ready, right? And then whenever we send a request to this endpoint, this is the placeholder. It will be replaced by the actual order ID you send it in, and then you will get this status whenever you send a request. That's pretty clear. And we want to say the button at some point it will enabled, and the text is no longer this one, but it will happen in a different time. Initially it will be we are preparing, but later on it initially even is disabled, but we need to wait for it to be enabled. So we need a async process in a test here. We need to say await, likely. So so basically we need to wait for a little while for the network request to respond. So initially it will be initialized when they send a request, and after a few milliseconds it will return a ready. So that's why we need a async. We need to await here, and the React library has a wait for function you can use that you can say wait for this expectation to happen. So you can still do the button to be enabled after a little while, and to enable the await, obviously we need to change the test as the async test, like so. So now if we run the test again, it will try to wait for a little while to see if the button is changed the status. Now let's run the test again. Yeah, as you can see, it's not it's still cannot find it, but it will wait for a little while. So we run test, you can see it's running for a little while. I think you can even say the timeout to be 5 or 3 seconds, if you run that, when the button is now enabled at the end of the test, it will still wait for 3 seconds. Yeah, it's like it will say okay, it's already a timeout, so I'm not seeing it tend to be enabled, but I have already waited for 3 seconds. Yeah, so now we need to send that request in our test. So in a directable here, now we can use the old ID and using a status here. So we can say what do you call that, status, maybe set status, just using the normal use stat, which is a boolean. Maybe it's not a boolean, but for now it may be a boolean, like it's maybe we call it ready or something like that, which will make more sense. Maybe status, we can call it a boolean for now, and we want to import these, and by default it's false. And maybe it's not a boolean because it might have a bunch of different status, like it's not ready, error, and it's gone, something like that. So we better not do that for now. Maybe it's a string. Oh, let's make it a string for now. So initially it will be initialized. So by default it's initialized, and this we only disabled when it's not ready, right? So we say if this is not ready, I'm going to disable it, but at some point if we have a network request, we will make it ready when it is ready. Yeah, that's cool. So for the side effect, obviously we need a use effect request, and now we can send a network request from this user effect, and we will need the old ID as a dependency. But we can either use the fetch API and provide this URL to send the request to, and then we get a response. But I feel the fetch is a little bit too native, and there are a lot of additional things you need to check, like if the response is okay or not, and yeah, that a bunch of addition steps that you need to take. So I prefer to use XOIs as the network request. So it's basically yarn add XOIs save. That's a network request library. It's pretty common. So XOIs is a network request. It's pretty easy to use. We simply install it to our local, and then we can just use that. We can use that as a HTTP client. So with that, you can get whatever we have in setup. So we can say, please send the request to the old ID here, and yeah, that's it. And then you import the XOIs like so. Actually we need probably we can see something like that, and the response, and we will check if the response.data.status, like if it is ready, we will set status as ready, right? So now we have this network request. When we send the request, so this will at the at the mount time, after the mount, React will call the user effect, and then it will send a request to this API, and when it's resolved, it will check if the response has the right data. If it does, it will set the status to ready, and then the button will check, okay, are you ready? When it's ready, it will be okay, cool, it's ready, and it's just simply enable the button. Now let's run the test again. Right, so we will need something. Okay, so the XOS, I guess it's like the module issue. We need to, in the package.json, we need to explicitly say to jest, and there's a mapper for XOS. Please map the this name to the another like build that will tell just to resolve this name to this one actual name. And let's run the test again. So now look at that, we have the button enabled. If I run a test for 2 of the tests, you say your API tried to get this one, but there was no route defined to handle the URL. What? Your application tried to get this one, but there's no route defined to handle the request. Define the router. I have already defined the router, right? Like so. If I run the test here, if I run the test itself, in here it will pass. You can see in the console it says, okay, the API router blah blah blah, and it will, this console log is from the mirage.js package. That's pretty awesome. So we can see all the results, and I say, okay, if I run this individual test here, it will pass. But if I run the test in a global space, like these 2 tests all together, that one will fail, because we probably need to define this into a global space, like in here. So let's move that part to here. You can basically do this router and define this whole method in, define this handler in here. Let's say this to get, and it will respond to ready, right? And if we run now, we run both tests, it will pass. Oh, sorry, maybe it's not. Let me run all of them in here. Okay, now the 2 tests are passing, and it's pretty much like enable the button, and we actually need to check if the text changed as well. We would like to check if this test is actually being used when the button is ready. So we can have another wait for expect screen dot get by text. This text like that, or friend and stuff like that will be to be on a document. And what is the problem here? Prefer find by, never mind. Let's run the test again. Okay, now it's in, the text is not really available. That's right, because we're not changing that yet. So we will need to, in our component, in the component, we need to say if the status is ready, we will need to show something like this, and otherwise we will show something like that. So now yes, and then it close the bracket. So now it's basically saying when the button, if the status is ready, we say it's ready, please pick it up. Otherwise, it just work preparing. Let's run the test again. Control R, and yeah, you can see it's all passing. And if we run both of them, it should all passing now. And you can see in the console log there are some logs from the Mirage package, basically saying, okay, I got the request and I'm responding that with the mocks, things like that. And yeah, that's about our very second test. So we can do a little bit refactor now. So I guess from the code, we probably can extract something for this long text. So yeah, we need to clean up the code a little bit. So first let's format the code, and then I'd like to extract a function for this one. Let's call it get message, maybe get message, should work. Command Option M, we want to define a global function, get message. It will, depends on the status, return different message text correspondingly. Yeah, so if I run test again, it will still passing. And for the test server, we can extract this whole thing into a different place, so we can use that both in test and the implementation. By saying that, I mean we can probably copy this whole create server statement into a function, create a method, create mock server, and why it's called this, I don't know. It should be something like that, simply like that. Or create a mock server, initialize, and then shut it up, and then we move this function into its own file. Maybe it's just a create mock server.ts, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And yeah, we have this in a separate file. The reason why we have it like that is we can now in a app.js we can call create mock server first before you actually do anything, and then we can test that boot to direct boot function with the old ID. We set it up like this one. Yeah, it doesn't matter the ID at all. So we can then test this functionality in our view, like refresh the page. It will, yeah, you can see that we're preparing your order, and then it's enabled, right? So before that, it's not, it's disabled, and when you at a certain point of time, it's enabled, and you can then click it. That's awesome. We have this function. Great. So in our in a component, so far it's okay. We don't have to do anything crazy yet. But I guess we will need to implement the arrow status, because it's very likely when you request the older status, the network is not responding, or the older service is simply crashed. So we need to fall back. We need to show the message like this. So we can do basically so that two steps needed in to simulate this error. So first, of course, we need to define a specific order ID. Let's say it's arrow ID or something like that, arrow order. And when the request is hit to that request, when the request is hit to that endpoint, we will return an arrow instead of the normal response. So by saying that, I mean, let's try in mock. So we say, okay, if the arrow ID includes the request parameters.id, then instead of return the normal response, please return a response like that. This response must be from the Mirage package, which will have the arrow code stuff. It's not the normal response. So if we look at the package here, it's like code. So we say 500, which is like server-side arrow, and the optional header. We don't have to say anything in the header, and the body will be object. So we say arrow, maybe something went wrong, right? If we call that ID in the application.js, we can pretty much see that, like if I'm providing a arrow ID here, and then when I send the request, what is going on here? It's not okay, yeah. Oh yeah, sorry. It need to be a new response like that. Okay, so now it's not turning anything because it's not ready yet. So you can see, in a console, there's some errors like uncalled error, and the response is basically what we return of 500. The data is something went wrong in here, right? So we need to catch that error in our code. Okay, now we have this set up. Let's try to write a test for the error handling. So in here, let's say shows a fallback, call the store button. So we will send a different order ID to the server, and then we are expecting this to be there. This to be there is fine. We don't actually need this actually, and we want to check the button is there, which is also fine. We don't have to check the disable, but we will need to maybe we don't check the button existence because currently the button will be there, and we would like to get by text. Let's copy the button text. Maybe it's 042333. We will need to wait the button to be in the document in 3 seconds, and also we will need to check the text to be something like, same something went wrong, you can call the number below as a callback. Yeah, like that. This is for the arrow cases. And let's run the test again. It will fail, and we need to actually move this above, so it will try to get a message first. All right, so we run test again. It says, okay, the button, okay, it's already failed because of the button. Anyways, we can move the button a little bit down lower, and I want to fix the text first. So now request failed because of 500 unhandled error. So let's go back to the story here. So we will need to say get a message when the message is not ready and not initialized. When it's error, we will change that. So let's catch this arrow from here and say if it's error, we simply set the status as error, right? And yeah, this is not correct, but yeah, we will fix that later on. So in here, if it's yeah, we need to change that to a switch case status, and when it's initialized, I will just copy the string over here. It shows we are preparing your order, like that. If the status is ready, we need to return this one. And if the keys is, what is problem here? Oh, sorry, it's no colon here. So keys is arrow. We'll need to return something else, and we don't need this one at all. And we will copy the arrow from here. Something went wrong. Please call us when needed. And we will test again. So now the first part should pass already. Yeah, okay, that's a new failure, which is a text number is not found. The button with the number is not found. So now we need to check one more thing here. Let's say arrow, if the status is arrow, we will need to render a button with this number, right? And if the status is not, we will do the following stuff like so. So if it's error, we will run that, otherwise we will run this and check the readiness. And if we run test again now, it should pass all the 3 tests. Fantastic. So now we can see if it's something went wrong, it will show a error message, and then you can click that. Sorry, it's not error message, the number, and you can click the button to call the store. Actually, in reality, it's normally a link with the href to be telephone and some number there. Also in application, we can, because it's arrow ID, we can see that in the browser. So you can say, seems something went wrong, you can call this following number to notify us instead. So you can click that button to call on your phone, but obviously it's not work. It will not work in a desktop browser. But yeah, that's basically the idea. So we now probably need to fix these ugly pieces by another switch, maybe like this, just like this function. Maybe we can move this function to its own file. We can put it to utils, because just doing the string calculation, we can do that. And for this one, we probably need another function to checking the status. When it's arrow, we return a button with a number. When it's not arrow, we will check other things, like it's ready or not. So let's create the function above. Maybe, yeah, it's sometimes it's not very easy to extract this whole thing. So instead, let's create a function called create button, maybe. And it will expecting a status string, and we will move this part, kind of copy the whole thing up, and switch the status. When it's initialized, we will return, let me copy this whole thing to a commit like this one. We will make it disabled, and if it's ready, we'll return the not disabled version. If it is arrow, we'll return this one. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, now we have this function, and we call that function in here by saying status please, and it will. Let's run the test again. It should not working as well, just like it was. Click the button, we'll click the button by status. It could be initialized, ready, or arrow. Once initialized, it is disabled. When it's ready, it's ready. And yeah, when this button is just a simple button. And also, normally we would split the network request into a separate place, and only have this rendering logic into the view. So it's pretty much a hook. Yeah, it's pretty much what you would have in a hook, right? So we can extract this whole thing into a hook. Maybe we call it use fetch order, maybe, and you give it order ID, which is a string, and then inside it you do this. We just copy the whole thing over, and you return the status. And then we don't have to using the use effect inside our component. Instead, we simply do status use fetch order and give it order ID. And if we run test again, it should not passing. That's perfect. And let's move this use fetch order into its own place. We can call it use fetch order.ts, and we don't need to add, we don't need anything else. It's just a hamburger hook. Yeah, cool. And we can, if we like, we can put this inside a function, but it's not necessary at the moment. that's pretty much the initial version of our direct boot component. It has network enabled. It has the test unit test. It's kind of unit test like talking to a mock server, and it will handling the error and like checking the readiness of the order. Yeah, that's pretty much about this video.